Imagine living peacefully in your own home. One day, a large ship arrives. Strangers walk onto your beach. Strangers walk onto your beach. They wear strange clothes and carry powerful weapons. They plant a flag in the ground. They announce that your home now belongs to a distant king. They take your gold, your food, and your land. Eventually, they even force you to speak their language. This is not a scene from a movie. This really happened to millions of people all over the world for hundreds of years. This changed the shape of our world forever. Hi, and welcome to Daily English Origins. Are you learning English? Great. Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started. Today, we are looking at the history of colonialism. What is colonialism? Colonialism happens when one powerful country takes control of another land and its people. The powerful country sends its own citizens to live there. The goal is to take wealth and resources back home. This story is difficult, but it is very important. It explains why we speak certain languages today. It explains why some countries are rich and others are poor. It is a story of power, loss, and human resilience. Human resilience is the ability to survive and stay strong after terrible events. Our story starts in Europe in the 1400s. At this time, European kings and queens wanted spices, silk, and gold from Asia. But traveling by land was slow and dangerous. European sailors started looking for new paths across the ocean. This period is known as the Age of Discovery. Ships were built stronger and faster. Men like Christopher Columbus sailed across the dark, unknown ocean. They were looking for India and China, but they found something else. In 1492, Columbus arrived in the Americas. Soon after, the countries of Spain and Portugal started claiming these new lands. They built large empires. An empire is a huge group of lands and different people controlled by one ruler. Spain took control of much of South America and Central America. Portugal claimed the land we now call Brazil. They drew lines on maps and divided the world between themselves. When the Europeans arrived, the lands were not empty. Millions of native people already lived there. They had their own cities, kings, and cultures. But the Europeans ignored this. They believed their weapons and their religion made them superior. Superior means believing you are better or more important than someone else. The European soldiers used guns and horses to defeat the local kings. They forced the native people to obey new laws. Why did the empires want these lands? The answer was money. They wanted to extract resources. Extracting means taking valuable things out of the earth and sending them away. They found huge mountains of silver and gold. They forced the native people to work in dark, dangerous mines. All the wealth was put onto ships. The ships sailed back to Europe. The empires became incredibly rich while the native lands became very poor. The weapons were terrible, but something else was worse. The Europeans brought diseases. A disease is a sickness that spreads from person to person. They brought illnesses like smallpox and the flu. The native people in the Americas had never had these sicknesses before. Their bodies could not fight the germs. Because of this, millions of native people died. Whole communities disappeared. It was a tragic loss of human life and culture. The empires did not just take gold. They changed how people lived. They imposed new systems. To impose means to force someone to accept a rule or a way of life. They forced the native people to practice a new religion. They built new schools and forced the children to speak Spanish, Portuguese, or English. Slowly, the old languages and traditions were pushed away. The empires wanted the new lands to look and sound exactly like Europe. For a long time, the empires focused on the Americas. But in the 1800s, they looked somewhere else. They looked at Africa and Asia. European leaders met in grand rooms in Berlin, Germany. They looked at a giant map of Africa. Then they drew lines across the map. They divided the entire continent among themselves. This event is called the Scramble for Africa. A scramble is a fast and hurried rush to get something before others take it. The European leaders did not ask the African people what they wanted. Sometimes countries did not send armies first. They sent businesses. The most famous was the British East India Company. This was a private business, but it acted like an empire. It had its own ships. It even had its own huge army. The company went to India to buy tea, cotton, and spices. Slowly, the company took control of the land. They defeated Indian kings and collected taxes. It was a time when a single business ruled over millions of people. We must also talk about the darkest part of this history. Because the empires needed workers for their huge farms, they began a terrible system. They stole millions of people from Africa. These people were enslaved. When a person is enslaved, their freedom is taken away, and they are forced to work for no money. They were put onto dark, crowded ships and sent across the ocean. Families were torn apart. The enslaved people built the wealth of the colonies, but they suffered deeply. The European empires were very greedy. They always wanted more land and more gold. Because of this, they often fought against each other. The British fought the French. The Spanish fought the British. These wars happened on the oceans and in the colonies. The native people were often caught in the middle. They were forced to fight in wars that were not their own. If you are enjoying this story and learning new English words, please take a quick moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us create more great history stories for you. Now let's get back to the story. Did the native people just accept this control? No, they did not. They fought back bravely. This is called resistance. Resistance means fighting back against someone who is attacking or controlling you. In Africa, warriors fought against guns using only spears and shields. In India, soldiers rebelled against the British Company. In the Americas, native tribes fought long wars to protect their homes. The empires were very powerful, but the human desire for freedom was stronger. For hundreds of years, the empires seemed impossible to defeat. But the world began to change in the 1900s. Two massive world wars happened. The countries in Europe fought each other in World War I and World War II. These wars cost a lot of money and destroyed European cities. The powerful empires were suddenly weakened. Weakened means made less strong and having less power. They did not have enough money or soldiers to control the distant lands anymore. During this time, new leaders emerged in the colonies. Leaders like Mahatma Gandhi in India told their people to stand up. They demanded independence. Independence means having the freedom to rule your own country without outside control. Millions of people marched in the streets. They refused to buy European goods. They wrote new laws. The age of huge global empires was slowly coming to an end. After the World Wars, a great change swept across the world. This change was called decolonization. Decolonization is the process of a colony fighting for and winning its freedom from an empire. From the 1940s to the 1970s, dozens of new countries were born. In Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean, people finally lowered the flags of the European empires. They raised their own beautiful new flags. They celebrated in the streets. They finally had the power to make their own choices. Freedom was a beautiful moment, but the new countries faced terrible problems. The empires had drawn borders on maps, but they ignored the native people. They forced different tribes and enemy groups to live inside the same country. When the empires left, these groups often fought each other. This led to civil wars. A civil war is a violent war fought between groups of people who live in the exact same country. These conflicts caused deep pain that lasted for many years. The empires also left a broken economy. For centuries, the colonies were only used to extract resources. The empires built railroads, but only to carry gold and cotton to the ocean. They did not build good schools or hospitals for the local people. This is called infrastructure. Infrastructure means the basic systems a country needs to function well, like roads, clean water, and power lines. Without good infrastructure, the new independent countries struggled to become rich and successful. Today, the history of colonialism is still alive in our words. Why do people in Brazil speak Portuguese? Why is French spoken in much of Africa? Why is English spoken in India and America? These languages are the permanent echoes of the empires. Many beautiful native languages were lost forever. However, the native people also blended their own traditions with the new languages. They created rich new cultures, beautiful music, and incredible food. Many people believe that colonialism ended when the empires left. But some experts say it just changed its shape. Today, we face a problem called neo-colonialism. Neo-colonialism happens when rich countries use money and powerful businesses to control poorer countries instead of using armies. Large companies still buy cheap resources from poor countries. The fight for true equality is not over. The world is still trying to balance the scales of justice. The history of colonialism is a heavy story. It is a story of stolen lands, broken systems, and unfair power. But more importantly, it is a story of survival. The empires tried to erase the native people, but they failed. The people survived. They held on to their humanity. They fought for their freedom, and they rebuilt their nations. We must remember this history, not to live in anger, but to understand our shared world. By learning the truth, we can build a future based on respect, equality, and human dignity. Hey there, just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like. Write your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.